Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here at my next YouTube video, and this is going to be my next Transformers Prime Beast Hunters episode review. And today I'm going to be reviewing the episode that aired last night, which is 307 plus 1, so it's the 7th episode of Season 3, which of course is subtitled Beast Hunters, and episode title is plus 1. Now, general thoughts I suppose before I get into some specifics. Overall, really did enjoy this episode. Like last week, it was really fun to watch, and I just had a kind of smile on my face the whole time because it was just a really enjoyable episode. I could tell this week, kind of like last week, that the writers were having a lot more fun than they've kind of had maybe with some of the other episodes, because there was a lot of kind of humor in this episode. They kind of made it the shipping episode of the show, where they did play a lot of characters against each other and kind of like hinting at like relationships stuff. So that was fun, something they haven't really played with that much. And it just really did work for me because not only did it continue the kind of plot of finding the Predacon bones, but also, setting up some other stuff as well as being a very fun episode. So get into the specifics. Of course, the main aspect of this episode is the shipping relationship sort of stuff. So I get straight into that. I suppose the most big talking point maybe would be June and Agent Fowler seemingly being put together as a couple, and I really did like how they did this, because if I had any complaint about this show is that it hasn't really got into this kind of relationship stuff with regards to romantic relationships that much at all. They kind of set up Jack and Sierra to kind of get together, but then we haven't seen Sierra in ages. So the fact that they had definitely played up the fact that Fowler likes June, and June seems to kind of like Fowler, and then they just put them together in this episode, really worked for me, because it wasn't just those two kind of playing against each other that worked. It was also the fact that they had Jack kind of like every time he heard them like say something that like hinted at them kind of becoming a couple, he was just like, no, I can't do this. And then you had Raph in the background going like, if they go on a dinner date, isn't that what grown-ups do when they date? Maybe they went to a movie. So Raph kind of trolling Jack because he can see that Jack's a bit kind of on edge about his mother kind of seemingly going out with Agent Fowler. So they not only played it up with the two characters, but also like the other characters in the background kind of going like, oh, you two. And then really funny when even Knockout was kind of referencing this. He's like, how long have you two been dating? Like, you bicker like an old married couple, and they're like, no. And, by the end of the episode, it seems like they definitely hinting at them getting together, and that they walked off. June is now calling him Bill, he's calling her June, they walk up together. And I suppose if I had any complaint about this episode, I kind of wonder, is the show going to continue with this, or is it just going to make it this one-off thing? Because now that they've done it, I just kind of want them to go with that. Like, every time we see June and Agent Fowler, they kind of make a point to say that they're together. I would like them to do that and just go ahead with that relationship, because it's something the show hasn't done, and I think it's something the show needs to do. So I hope they do that. Because the two actually work really well together on screen, because Agent Fowler, obviously he's a human who can do some action stuff, and then in this episode, for the first time in a while, they put June in a position where she could do some kind of more action-oriented stuff with the Transformers, and they work well together in terms of two human characters playing off each other. So that was really nice. Then I suppose getting more away from that and into the other relationships stuff that they were sort of setting up, and one of them was definitely RC and Wheeljack. And the big thing that kind of makes me lean towards this kind of maybe being more shippy thing is Miko, when she calls Jack and basically says that, has Wheeljack come home, and then Jack tells her he's gone off with RC, and she's just like, oh, the two like lone wolves getting together. And then she obviously thinks the two are kind of going to get like romantically involved somehow or something like that. And in some aspects, I'm kind of glad that the show didn't shy away from maybe presenting more romance in between Transformers. because it's a natural thing. It made sense. So them kind of playing up that kind of really did work for me. Um, and then Jack also with the hint that RC and Wheeljack or maybe something's going on there was also a bit like no, it's just one mission. So it's kind of an interesting thing with Jack in the episode as well. That he's just like, no, these two people can't go out. No. And so then the two of them together, Wheeljack and RC, they did work. They are the two kind of characters that have been set up as the more lone wolf characters. RC kind of less so than Wheeljack in that she is part of Team Prime, but definitely she hasn't had a bot kind of partner since Cliffjumper died. So that's something they kind of haven't touched on in a while. The whole RC kind of partner thing, and they kind of came back to it here in that she, having experienced this kind of stuff more than Wheeljack, it was able to help Wheeljack through kind of his issues with Ultra Magnus and Bulkhead, and that this is where they used the fact that RC is a female transformer a bit really well, I thought, and that Wheeljack is the kind of guy bot. He's not really going to talk about his feelings too much. He doesn't really know how to express it that well. And then RC is able to bring it out because she's a bit more in touch with her feelings. She's gone through some of this stuff before with the loss of Tailgate and Cliffjumper, so she's able to really kind of get that out of him. That his issue is, yes, it's in part mainly due to Magnus kind of ruining what he considers to be the kind of the way the Wreckers are meant to be. But his main issue in part is because Bulkhead has changed from the Wrecker that was part of that original team, and that he feels Bulkhead has kind of got soft and he's not the guy he once remembered. So, RC basically tells him that things changed. Bulkhead is part of Team Prime now, and he kind of definitely the subtext of this is that remember what Bulkhead was like in the last episode. He at the same time had to balance between doing what his commanding officer Ultra Magnus was telling him, but also not making it that he was doing this at the expense of his friendship to Wheeljack. So Bulkhead was put in a really bad situation last episode, and kind of RC was just referencing that here, that Ultra Magnus is the commander now. You still have the time when you loved the Wreckers, but things have changed now, and you can't just kind of keep Bulkhead away, and you have to kind of just go with that. So I like that. And then the second he comes back, he's talking to RC, and then immediately goes over to Bulkhead, and they're talking like bros. And they said the word bromance at the end, and that kind of, I suppose, works in that those two are best friends. That's what they're going for, I think, nothing more than that. But I suppose the concepts brought up here were very interesting in that they addressed more human-like relationships between Transformers, which was a nice thing for them to do, and something the More Than Meets the Eye comic from IDW is doing really well. I hope they kind of go a bit further with it here. In that I'd like to see more RC and Wheeljack interactions, just to see have they actually set up anything here, or was it just this was the shipping episode, let's put the girl robot with Wheeljack and see what happens. In terms of other character relationships, we had when Miko came back, she basically called Jack her bro. So they definitely set up in this episode that it was the three kind of human kids, Raph, Jack, and Miko, are kind of like this family. They all kind of consider themselves like each other's siblings, that sort of way. So that was interesting. He just came on like bro, and she was saying Jack got jacked by Jack. It was just this nice moment between the human characters, and just overall, I think they're doing so much better with characterization this season than the seasons before. So that was pretty nice, and still a lot of other stuff to talk about in the episode. Obviously, the main plot was basically finding the next bone relic, and it was basically Knockout versus RC and Wheeljack trying to find it, but it also involved June and Fowler basically being the ones who found it, and then them getting captured by Knockout. So Knockout getting a bigger role in this episode than he has in a while was amazing, because he really works, I think, with the humans. He worked so well in this episode in that He's not the Decepticon who's really unbelievably cruel, like say a Starscream or a Megatron would be. He does kind of play jokes and kind of knows a bit more about human culture. So he was the kind of like the perfect person to have for this episode, in that you had that amazingly funny moment where the two of them are in the booth. And he's like, "You met like an old married couple," and just like, "You kind of like fleshies repulse me," and it's just like the whole concept of you interfacing repulses me. It's just like, really, you just kind of made that reference and it's just like, oh. I think people maybe read into that line a bit too much, that interfacing is like the Transformers sex or something like that. I don't think that's what they were going for as well. I think he obviously like has looked up the internet and stuff like that, and knows kind of how humans reproduce or something like that, and the only kind of Transformers equivalent he can think of is them like interfacing with a computer or something like that. I don't think they were referencing like any sort of like Transformer sex or anything like that. Not at all. I think it was just the only comparison Knockout could make. So anyway, and then like, he has some really funny moments, mainly when trying to contact the ship basically to get a ground bridge, and just like he made the. This was the other shippy kind of moment on the Decepticon side of things. It wasn't a like romance relationship sort of thing. It was just who gets to be Megatron's kind of number one guy, and then she just like Megatron is like, "Hey, Big M, tell me you love me more than Screamy," or something like that. And I was just like, "Oh, Knockout, you're amazing," and there was just a nice moment to have. And then obviously in terms of the plot, it wasn't really a plot focused episode, but it had them finding the bone, and again the Decepticons get hold of it by the end of the episode. So they've pretty much won every time, or got some of the bone. And a little reference in the background that Shockwave is definitely advancing in terms of the cloning process. And then the big kind of plot element would be that Predaking is not as kind of beast-like as you may think. He does actually have some intelligence to him, starting to use the computer at the end of the episode to look up, I suppose, progress on the other Predacons. So I think what they're maybe setting up here is that Predaking is going to start this kind of Predacon rebellion. Like, they're going to turn on the Decepticons and they won't be able to control them anymore, and Predaking's going to become this. The Predacons are going to kind of become this third faction, and that's exciting if that's what they actually go for. Just trying to think about other aspects of the episode I haven't talked about yet. What else was there? I suppose the action scenes were actually really nicely done. You had the kind of I suppose Wheeljack finding more respect for RC when they immediately bridge in and they're confronted by Viacons. They have the kind of moment where they work really well together. He throws her up in the air, distracts them, and they beat them all. And then Wheeljack's just like, "Are you sure you're not a wrecker?" And that just started the whole little shipping thing for them throughout the episode. Then really nice use of, I suppose, transformation among the kind of car and bike transformers, and that they were constantly like catching up with the train, transforming briefly, transforming again to just kind of like move around. So nice use of transformation in the action scenes, and it just kind of worked. Like, Knockout wasn't really there to fight Wheeljack and RC, because he probably wouldn't win like in a straight fight. So he's just kind of like, bridge me out now, and the fight ended up just being kind of them, RC and Wheeljack taking out some Insecticons, and it was a nice fight. RC using the kind of weapon she got from Ultra Magnus in the first four-parter. That was a nice kind of reference, I suppose, to have. And I suppose the big things to take from the end of the episode are that Wheeljack isn't going off on his own, and that what happened here with RC has actually made him stick around. As much as he can't stick around with Ultra Magnus, he's staying here kind of for Bulkhead and that friendship that they have. That was nice. Just a nice thing that they're keeping him around. They're not going to go with him going off again. The Autobots again didn't get to keep the relic out of Decepticon hands. And then just some relationship stuff, like June and Agent Fowler seem to be getting together and stuff like that. So overall, really nice episode. I don't really have many complaints at all about the episode. I just hope they stick with the relationship stuff that they've actually set up. Because if they just don't do anything with Agent Fowler and June, that'll be disappointing. That'll bring this episode down, in my opinion. But that's pretty much all I have to say about this episode. Definitely comment below with your own thoughts on this episode. Did you think it was as fun as I did? I suppose it was just this kind of novelty of not really having a shipping kind of episode that just really had fun with it ever, and I really like that. But next episode looks really interesting. Zombies and a Decepticon ship. Looks to be a very Decepticon focused episode, which should be a lot of fun next week as well. So a lot of fun stuff happening this season of Transformers Prime, and yep, I'll be reviewing that one next week, and that's pretty much all I have to say this time. So thank you for watching this review, and bye.